Hey guys, what's going on? It's Colin here again. Today I have something kind of different. This is a Paul Water Systems well pump. There's all the information for you. You're gonna have to excuse all the noise. I am in the basement and it sounds like the dogs are running around in circles upstairs, which they like to do. Anyways, it's really crappy weather out there. I don't know if you can tell, but so that's the reason I'm down here. Also, this isn't a dirty, smelly engine, so I can work inside for once. Anyways, this, like I said, is a Paul Water System. It's an antique well pump. And it was given to me by the same guy that gave me the Ideal and Wisconsin generator, and a couple other things. As you can see, it's more or less there. Here's an old head gasket that was there at some point. These I'll get to later. Here's the other part of the pump. This is the intake, so that would sit there, like that. That's just a couple pieces I went and bought for it, but it's pretty much all there. It's a pressure switch. There. There you go. You can wire that up. Complete with some very, very old wiring. Almost looks like old household wiring. Kind of like this stuff over here. This house was built in the 50s, so I got a perfect example like that. Anyways, so basically in this video I was hoping to get this thing going, because what I want to do with this is I want to fix it up, and I'm debating between two different things. A couple different things, I should say. I'm debating whether or not to keep the motor on and bring it to engine shows and use it as a load for some of my generators, or to put the little Briggs & Stratton 5S here, because I think that would fit, or to take the motor off entirely and put the Ideal off to the side here and drive it with that. But that's the goal if I get this thing going. Everything spins freely, as you can see. This is an old maybe not even, it's a old leather belt. It's pretty much disintegrating here. Oh, maybe it was canvas. I don't know. It's an old flat belt. Motor spins. Pulley's a little bit loose on the motor shaft, but and the pump spins. So the tensioner is going to get in the way. Yeah, it looks like I have all the parts and pieces I'll need. So anyways, guys, I think I'm going to do a mix of time-lapse and progress updates with this thing. So I'm going to set you guys up on the tripod and we can start diving into this thing. So I think I'm going to start off by getting this motor off, so one, I can see the data tag that's already buried down in there, and two, I can do some electrical work on it. So let's get started with the time-lapse here. There's the data plate on that. It's a quarter horse, 4.8 amps, 110 volts, which should give you an idea of its age right there. Modern things say 120. 60 cycles, of course. Style 1181, 16419. There's a 50 stamped in right there and an H right there. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's a 30. No, it's a 50. It's hard to read. But yeah, I also just went ahead and wired in a quick test cord here. So let's see if we don't blow anything up here. Got an outlet under the table here. It works. Wow, you can't ask for better than that. Scared me for a second. Stop that. Wow, so that thing works. Cool. I'm going to check the amps that it's pulling, just to make sure everything's healthy. Alright, got an extension cord here with the kilowatt on it, so let's see how many amps this thing pulls. Pulling 5.27. It's rated for 4 point something. I forget. It's rated for 4.8, but we are running at 118 volts, so I think that's alright. Not entirely sure. It does smell. I don't know if that's a old motor smell or if that's a bad smell. I can't tell, but I'm going to unplug it for now. And if worse comes to worse and this thing were to burn out, I do have some other vintage motors I could throw on. Not saying that I want that to happen, but alright. Kind of smells weird, like I said, but not so much in a good way. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and put some oil in this thing too while I'm here. Alright, we got the zoom spout here. See if we can't oil this thing up a little bit. And drip all over the place in the process. These wicks have not seen oil in a very long time. That should do it. Alright, so this pulley is a little loose on this shaft here, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. There we go. Not a lot of play in this in the bearings on this thing, so that's good. Let's go ahead and fire it up one more time. Yeah, it's registering 5.27 amps. It's rated for 4.8, but it's also rated for 110 volts, and we're on 118, so I think that might be the problem right there. But it's definitely got an old motor smell to it, I can tell you that. It's kind of distinguished smell. The only time I've smelt that smell before was an antique jigsaw. Kind of has a habit of stinking up the room a little bit. Alright, I'm going to put this off to the side and we're going to move on to the pump itself now. Alright, so I have virtually no information on this pump whatsoever online. I found two things online. I have a page from a booklet, advertising booklet, that basically shows different models, a couple specs, and apparently they made these pumps with Briggs Model Fs on them too. They had a larger version. And then this one. This one's in the book. I can pull up some information from it in a minute. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But the other interesting thing about these pumps, they had competition at the time, like Myers is a big competition I think that they had. The interesting thing about this particular pump, it's a single, I don't know the exact terminology, but I think it's single acting pump. Basically, you don't get a continuous stream. You kind of get like little spurts of water as it pumps. Normally, with like the Myers pumps, it's pumping, you know, there's a piston in here that goes back and forth. The Myers pumps pump with both cycles of the piston. This one only pumps when it's pushing forward, not when it's pulling back. So that's kind of interesting. Also, the actual pump mechanism itself is interesting. If we look here, I think that these are something to do with water pressure, because this was probably used to give some household water at some point. The actual inlet on this thing, this is supposed to be like a flapper as like a check valve, and it's pretty rusty and crusty in there. Sorry, I'm trying to get the best angle for you. I'm going to pull this plug if I can and take a look, see if there's anything I can do, but just in case, I bought a modern check valve for that. And then if you look here, there's just a regular valve, almost like in a small engine. There's quite a bit of slop in it, not that that really matters here, but just kind of interesting. It's a spring-loaded valve, so that's another check valve. Then here's another thing for pressure, because it's got a pressure switch on it, so I'd assume it would pump until there's enough pressure in a tank, and then stop, and then, you know, kind of keep the tank pressurized. In here, there's a piston, which has like a little rubber piece on it that's supposed to be the seal, I guess, for the piston. That's kind of shrunken a little bit, but I have a feeling that if I put water through it, it will probably swell up a little bit, hopefully. There's actually no exhaust valve in this. What I was told by the guy that gave this to me, I'm not entirely sure if this is correct or not, but you can see that this is tapered. So what I was told is that when this fits on here, there's an O-ring. This is the original one. I was told that the O-ring, I guess this shrunk a little bit because otherwise this wouldn't work, fits in between this and the cylinder wall. So when it's sucking water in, this gets sucked forward and seals, so no water will go out the exhaust or output. I'm thinking of in engine terms here. And I'm told when it's pushing back, this obviously closes, and the water's got to go somewhere, so this O-ring pulls back on this tapered bit, and that's what opens up the gap for the water to leave. I really don't know if that's correct, but that's what I've been told. And the O-ring is here, and it would kind of do that. But that seems pretty interesting to me. I don't know about you guys. Hopefully you understood the way I explained it. But from here on, what I want to go ahead and do, I want to re-tap these holes and put some new bolts in, because it didn't come with the bolts when I got it, and the guy that gave it to me said that these were snapped off. So I bought a tap and I bought some bolts. Gonna go ahead and tap that. I'll make a gasket for the head, and we can put the head on with this O-ring, see if that works. I'm gonna have to do like a little plumbing too, so we'll see how it works. And then after that, we can dive into the actual pump body, because I gotta pull this off, see what the deal is in here. I don't know if it takes oil or anything, so I'm gonna pull this apart. Then we'll throw the motor back on and we'll give it a test. So it's time for another long time lapse. So guys, I was just in the process of cleaning up the motor mounts here so I could go ahead and throw that back on. I discovered something very interesting. This is not the original motor. This has been kind of hacked together. This motor was supposed to sit in a cradle that was held like this, kind of, you know, like a hook like this, and there was a strap that would go across. Somebody made this plate. I only realized once I cleaned all the crap off of it, but you can very much tell that was homemade. Somebody needed to keep their water supply together, so they made a plate. That's pretty interesting. It's very jaggedly cut, and these holes are very not well drilled. It's just very interesting. The original motor would have mounted with these 4 screws. So it's slightly disappointing, but at least it's got an interesting story, I guess. Here's some of the crap that came off of here. Just kind of scraped it off in sheets with a razor. Of course, I decided to do that right where all my hardware was sitting, but that's alright. So I'm going to go ahead and throw you guys back up on the tripod, and we're going to throw that motor back on. Alright, so I got the motor back on. I got a spring for the tensioner here. Everything seems to work. So let's see what happens. Well, that was exciting. I figured something to that nature would happen. Yeah, so our belt is pretty shot, as I figured it might be. But that was exciting. Alright, I'm going to have to rig this belt back up to work. Alright, let's try again. I taped the belt back together, so here goes nothing. It is going. It's drawing closer to 6 amps though, which makes me worried. And the belt's starting to fall apart again. So, I don't know how healthy this motor really is. I'm a little concerned. It smells and it's drawing a little too much power, despite me oiling it. Alright, this time I'm going to put my hand over the intake, see if I can't feel any suction. Alright, this whole belt's starting to come apart now. I guess I need a new one. Alright, so I didn't feel anything, but I just remembered it's probably because the actual piston, you know, the O-ring in there hasn't expanded yet, so it's probably leaking a lot. I guess the next step would be to just run some water through it and let that O-ring expand a bit and go from there. Then I definitely got to get a new belt. Hopefully that shouldn't be too hard to do. I might be able to just get away with a piece of fabric. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I run water through it, I want to pop the back of this pump off and see, like, anything about oil or how the inside looks. Alright, let's zoom in a little bit here and try and get some light in here with my phone camera. So, as you can probably tell, it's very similar to an engine. You have a connecting rod in there and just a little crank and some very gooey looking crap for what was probably oil at one point in the bottom there. There's a little fill up at the top here, over here. I'm assuming it was for oil. I just don't know to what level you're supposed to fill it. And you can see the piston there when it comes all the way back. Let's see. That seems good. Here's the bearing on this side. Doesn't look half bad. That's also good. But they did intend on this being splash lubricated because this is the top, and you can see there's a little. Oh, there you go. Hold on. You can see there's a little like cup for the oil to catch and go in. So, if you're gonna run this for any extended period of time, you better have oil in it. I'm going to assume that the oil level is probably... Oh, you know what? Nope, never mind. I thought I saw a little cap, but I didn't. Yeah, there's really no, like, dipstick or, like, valve that you can turn to check the oil. So, I don't know, maybe fill it up to, like, here-ish? Just below the piston? I'm really not sure, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe out as much of that like rusty looking crap at the bottom as I can. And I'm probably just going to fill it with some engine oil, honestly, because that's all I really have once I get it running right and working. But before I even do any of that, I'm going to fill it up with some water, because water is probably going to leak back and fill into here. So I think that's going to be the next step, as I will clean out some of that crap in the bottom. Then I'll start to run some water through it and we'll see what it does. Yeah, so that's what's coming out of the bottom. Not great. Alright, so before we take it outside and run some water through it, I'm too curious to see if this is actually going to work. I took some gaff tape and made a new belt for it. We're going to see if this works. I'm going to stand away from it here. Here we go. Hey, that works pretty well. There's your amp draw. 5.6 amps. It's a little more than it's supposed to. It's supposed to be 4.8, but whatever. Shaking this whole table. There you go. That seems to be working. Alright, let's run some water through it and see what happens. Alright guys, so I'm out in the garage here, and it's absolutely pouring outside. I just finished with my little test, as you can probably tell, seeing as though everything here is soaked. When you put the hose to it, water squirts out of literally everywhere. It shot out here, it shot out here, it shot out from the holes that weren't plugged over here, so that whole case filled up with water. It's since been dried out, just indicating that the piston really isn't sealing that well. The other thing that isn't working 100%, Because after I ran it through like that for a little bit, I tried just putting this end in water, seeing if I got anything, and I didn't. So, two things need to happen. One, I need to pull this and soak that O-ring that sits in there that acts as the exhaust valve. See if I can't get that to work right. And then the other thing I need to do is pull the O-ring that seals the piston off and soak that. See if I can't get that to expand and seal better. So I'm going to go ahead and tear this thing off again, and we will be back in a second. So, as suspected, our piston is definitely not seating right. Sorry about the shadows in here. Take a look. I'm going to just take a screwdriver here. Maybe you can see how much that's moving up and down. But it's too much. That O-ring has not expanded, and it is currently not sealing. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. I apologize for the terrible lighting in here, but it's the best I can do. This is not what I was expecting for a piston. It looks like a regular piston down here, and it's got this long piece. This looks like brass or something. Same with the connecting rod. It's definitely well made and pretty interesting. But that might be a reason that we're not getting good suction, is there's a couple old crappy sticky O-rings on here that are not sealed up properly, I bet. I'm going to see what I can do to expand the ones that are on here, and I'll be back. Otherwise, I might have to go buy some new ones, which would kind of suck. Alright, so I popped this thing back into the water here, as you can see. And if you'll give me 1 second to plug it in. Should start pumping. With a little prime, it will pump. There we go. Just have to prime it a little bit. I don't have that check valve installed, as you can see. So, I don't know if that's why it needs a prime, because it's just not getting enough suction to suck the water up and stay in. But once you prime it, it starts pumping right away. It seems a tad weak, but that could also just be because the O-rings on that piston are kind of worn. But it does in fact work, so I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that check valve and see if that helps us at all. So just playing with it a little more. I don't have the check valve in currently, but it is pumping. I don't know if that's exactly the flow rate it should be achieving, but considering what those O-rings look like on the inside, I'm surprised it's even working at all. There really wasn't a lot of, they didn't expand as much as I had hoped. They expanded enough to get a little pumping, but not much. And you kind of have to prime it. So if I were to stop this, it wouldn't, and turn it back on again, it wouldn't just start pumping again. You have to turn that little tube up and prime it. But honestly, considering what this pump was, I'm really not that surprised. Just debating in my mind right now whether to leave it where it is or to take it all apart again and go in a little further and see if I can't, make new O-rings or whatever for it. I'm not sure what I want to do. We'll have to see. So guys, it's been about 3 weeks since I've actually been able to do any videoing, and probably about a month since I've actually videoed anything on this pump. So I figured I'd better fill you guys in and not just abandon this video. Since then I've done a lot to it, as you can probably tell. What I ended up doing to get it pumping was I ended up going to Lehman's catalog, Lehman, and they have brand new cups for these. Those little leather, what I thought were O-rings, they're actually called like leather, they're called cups, and they're made of leather. So I bought 2 new cups, and I let them swell up in the water, and I put them in here, and it kind of pumped. It was a little better than what it was. So then I was starting to get a little mad. I was like, oh crap, what's going on? So I let it sit for a little while, and then the next time I worked on it, I didn't realize this, but water was actually sitting in here the whole time. And the next time I turned it on, it started pumping like crazy because water actually sat in here for a little bit and swelled up the cups a little more. So now this thing pumps great. As you can see, I've built a little display for it. It's an old shower head. I'm not entirely sold on the way this whole pipe looks, but it's what I've got on hand right now. I'm not going to run to the hardware store if I don't need to. You might recognize that as the actual pipe that used to be on here. I'm using it as a weight for this hose. And I found this barrel in the garbage, which actually is going to work perfectly. I also wired up the pressure switch. Let's see if I can pop this cover. There you go. It's just an old air conditioner cord. It's way bigger than what this pump needs, but it's what I had. And I grounded it too, which is probably a smart idea. So yeah, it actually works pretty well. My gaff tape belt has been holding up pretty well, but at some point I'm going to find an actual one. And the other cool thing I did was I power washed it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but there's actually quite a bit of original blue paint left on this. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of like little things to it across the last couple weeks when I've had time. And I've come up with something that actually works out pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in here. Come on, it's hard to do one-handed. There we go. And you can see, that actually works pretty well. There's actually a decent amount of pressure behind this. I like the shower head because you get like a spray rather than just the water just kind of, you know, flopping in there. But, hold that back. But yeah, I think I've decided that I'm going to leave this as is, and I'm going to run this probably with my little David Bradley generator because it's actually perfect. It's a perfect load for that thing. But I'm going to keep it exactly the way it is. I'm not going to put an engine on it or anything. Just going to keep it electric. I've actually kind of grown on the idea. It's kind of cool now that that plate down there and this motor, you know, kind of form all together. But yeah, it's actually working really well. I've still got the original O-ring in there that it kind of acts as the exhaust valve. But I was initially saying that it kind of sat up more on that taper when the piston came up. It doesn't actually. What happens is the water comes in here, the intake valve gets, you know, sucked open, the water gets pulled in, the intake valve closes and the piston comes forward, the water has nowhere else to go, so it kind of just squirts out from around that O-ring. It's kind of interesting. The whole thing's interesting, honestly, but I'm pretty happy with the way it's come out. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and unplug this. I'm gonna find a real leather belt for it at some point because that kind of looks stupid with the idler bouncing up and down like crazy. Also, probably gonna put a real Carter pin in there instead of the zip tie. But you know, for the most part, it's pretty much complete. So. I think the only other big thing I'm going to do, which I'm not going to do on camera, is I think I'm going to make a nice dolly that this will sit in because it weighs a ton. And it's really awkward. I mean, it's not so heavy that I can't lift it, but the problem is all the weight's on like this side. So you pick it up and it kind of wants to fall out of your hands. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I'm sorry this video kind of, you know, it was going real smooth for a while and then all of a sudden now we are like 3 months later with all this stuff done. But I just really didn't have the time between starting my own business and AP tests and all that, but now that's all done, so it's pretty much summertime, so I'm going to get back to normal. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. If you like what you see, hit the little like and subscribe buttons. Leave a comment if you have one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.